There are sculptures that get explained, and there are sculptures that get argued about. The difference is not quality. Some of the most technically perfect works in history have been explained, catalogued, and forgotten. What makes a sculpture impossible to resolve is something else entirely. It is when the object itself refuses to tell you what it is. For 370 years, this one has been doing exactly that. No one, not the church that kept it, not the scholars who studied it, not the visitors who stood in front of it, has ever agreed on what they were looking at. This is the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa. And the argument starts the moment you walk in. The sculpture stands above the altar of the Cornaro Chapel in the Church of Santa Maria della Vittoria in Rome. It is life-size. It is carved from a single block of white Carrara marble. A nun lies on a cloud. The cloud does not look like stone. It looks like something that would dissolve if you touched it. Her robes cascade around her body in turbulent folds. The folds do not look carved. They look interrupted, caught mid-movement, as though the stone solidified around fabric that was still shifting. Her bare foot dangles over the edge of the cloud. The skin does not look like marble. It looks soft. An angel stands over her, smiling. His tunic appears to billow. There is no wind in the Cornaro Chapel. There has not been wind in that room for 370 years. In his right hand, he holds a golden spear, aimed at her chest. Her head is thrown back. Her mouth is open. Her eyes are half closed and rolled upward. Start with the robes, because that is where the technical argument begins, and it does not end easily. Classical sculpture handles drapery with control. The folds are measured, elegant, contained. They suggest fabric without pretending to be it. Bernini's robes do something different. They do not suggest fabric. They insist on it. The folds are deep enough that during a recent restoration, conservators found small fragments of marble still lodged inside the crevices from Bernini's original carving. The stone had been removed to a depth and at an angle that no chisel should have been able to reach without shattering the surrounding material. Now look at the angel's left hand. His fingers do not grip Teresa's robe. They cup it, delicately, with the particular lightness of someone touching something fragile. Bernini carved the specific pressure of fingertips through cloth from a single block of stone. Then look at Teresa's face. Her expression is not the serene composure of classical devotional art. It is something in motion, caught mid-experience. The muscles around her mouth, her jaw, her closed eyes, they are arranged the way a face arranges itself when the body is responding to something it did not choose and cannot stop. Rudolf Wittcauer, writing in the Pelican History of Art, called this the most daring attempt in the history of sculpture to translate into marble a state of mystical rapture. He did not mean it as uncomplicated praise. He meant that Bernini had gone somewhere sculpture was not supposed to go. Teresa's description of the transverberation, the piercing of her heart by the angel, appears in her autobiography, The Life of Saint Teresa of Avila, completed around 1565. The passage is detailed, specific and physiological in a way that made the church uncomfortable for decades. She was not describing a metaphor. She was describing a physical event that she claimed had happened to her body. Repeatedly. When Teresa died in 1582, her body was exhumed. It was found incorrupt. Doctors from the University of Salamanca later examined her preserved heart. They found a visible puncture wound. The heart is still preserved today at the Carmelite convent in Alba de Tormes, Spain. The wound is still visible. Bernini knew the autobiography. He built the sculpture around it. He was not illustrating an idea. He was illustrating something that, by the church's own physical evidence, had actually happened to a human body. To understand why Bernini made the choices he made, you have to understand where he was standing when Cardinal Federico Cornaro came to him with this commission in 1647. 1 year earlier, on February 23rd, 1646, Pope Innocent X had issued a decree ordering the demolition of the southern bell tower Bernini had designed for the facade of St. Peter's Basilica. The tower had developed structural problems. Bernini was blamed. He was fined. He was publicly humiliated. His arch-rival, Francesco Borromini, became the Pope's new favorite. For the first time in decades, the most celebrated sculptor in Rome had no papal patron and no major commission. What historians have noted since is that the political reality was more complicated. Scholar Sarah McPhee, in her study of the bell towers, documented that Bernini had consistently sought structural advice throughout the project, and that the towers were repeatedly enlarged under papal pressure, not through his own recklessness. The demolition may have been triggered less by engineering failure than by a political dispute with a cardinal nephew who had been offended by a satirical play Bernini staged weeks before the decree. None of that mattered in 1647. What mattered was that Bernini needed this chapel to work. Cardinal Federico Cornaro was Venetian, wealthy, and commissioning a private burial chapel for his family. He gave Bernini the Cornaro Chapel at Santa Maria della Vittoria, a small church on the outskirts of Rome, well away from the major pilgrimage routes, far from papal oversight, far from the scrutiny that had destroyed him at St. Peter's. Several scholars have noted carefully that a sculpture like the Ecstasy of St. Teresa would almost certainly have been rejected in a major basilica. The margins gave Bernini room to push, and the man who had just been publicly stripped of everything pushed as far as marble would allow. Bernini designed every element of the Cornaro Chapel himself, not just the sculpture, but the architecture around it, the lighting, the figures watching from the side walls. Behind the pediment above the sculpture, he installed a hidden window. Natural light enters from outside and falls down onto the white marble, making it glow against the otherwise darkened interior. During a restoration of the chapel, conservators discovered that the window had been fitted with stained glass, calibrated to direct the light at a specific angle, the same angle at which the gilded bronze rays descend toward the two figures. Bernini had been a playwright and stage designer for much of his life. He knew exactly what controlled light does to an audience. The Cornaro family members are present in the chapel. but not in the conventional way. Sculpted in relief on the side walls, shown in what appear to be theater boxes, they lean over the edges and gesture to each other. They are watching. They are discussing what they are seeing. They are, in every visual sense, an audience. And here is what that detail does to the space. If the Cornaro figures are pious witnesses to a genuine divine miracle, then you, standing in the chapel, are joining a community of believers. You are part of something sacred. But if they are an audience watching a theatrical performance, then Bernini is acknowledging directly that what you are looking at is a show. And if it is a show, then the question shifts. Not, what is Teresa experiencing? But, what does Bernini want you to feel? There is a terracotta preparatory model Bernini made before carving the marble. It is held today at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. In that model, Teresa's wimple is secure. Her head tilts gently. Her mouth is barely open. Between that model and the finished marble, Bernini made a series of deliberate changes. He loosened the wimple. He threw her head dramatically backward. He widened her parted lips. He repositioned her legs further apart. You can still see his fingerprints pressed into the clay. Art historian Simon Schama described the ecstasy of Saint Teresa as the most astounding peep show in art. A spectacle that hovers, in his words, on the borderline between sacred mystery and indecency. He added that scholars had fallen over themselves to avoid stating what the sculpture plainly shows. The reading is not obscure. Teresa's posture, her thrown-back head, her open mouth, her suspended body, follows the visual grammar of erotic painting that hung in every major Roman household of the period. Correggio's Danae, in the Borghese gallery that Bernini knew intimately, shows almost the same composition. A reclining woman, a divine figure above her, something descending from the heavens. The resemblance was not accidental. It could not have been accidental. Any educated Roman viewer in 1652 would have recognized it immediately. Psychoanalyst Danny Nobus, in his analysis of the work, described it as a shameless sacrilegious depiction that exploited the language of physical desire to represent spiritual experience. But here is the other reading, and it is equally supported by the evidence. Teresa herself described her experience in language that makes no distinction between spiritual and physical sensation. Pain so severe, it made her moan. Sweetness so extreme, she could not wish it to stop. If you take her account literally, and the Church, which canonized her and preserved her heart as a relic, did take it literally, then the physical intensity of what Bernini carved is not an intrusion into the sacred. It is the sacred, expressed in the only terms a human body can register. Scholar Franco Mormando, in his biography of Bernini, argued that the sculptor was working within a well-established Counter-Reformation tradition of using sensory experience to move the faithful toward God. The intensity was not despite the religious context. It was because of it. If you believe Bernini violated sacred art, you are looking at the most audacious act of transgression ever placed above a church altar and left there. untouched for over 3.5 centuries. If you believe Bernini was faithful to Teresa's own account, you are looking at the most honest attempt ever made to show a human being experiencing something that cannot be shown. The Church chose not to remove it. Whether that is because they saw only devotion, or because they understood that the two readings were never meant to be separated, is not recorded anywhere. The sculpture has been in that chapel above that altar for 370 years. It has never been moved. It has never been covered. It has never been censored. Teresa wrote that the experience left her all on fire with a wondrous love for God. She also wrote the pain was so severe she cried out. She never resolved the tension between those two things because she did not believe there was a tension to resolve. For Teresa, they were the same event. Bernini gave you one block of marble and asked you to see fabric, flesh, wind, weight, and weightlessness all at once. He did what he always did. He took the impossible and made it the only thing in the room. Whether what he carved is an act of faith or an act of provocation, or whether that distinction ever made sense in the first place, is a question the chapel has been asking since 1652. It has not answered it yet. I would like to know where you land on this. Drop your reading in the comments. I read everyone.